Hello everybody, I'm Dutch and welcome again to my live stream. So this week I want to try to do a better job of getting in your questions. So ask your questions, Fee's going to feed them to me and hopefully I can get around to them. We've had a hard time communicating those for me to answer those questions in the past, but hopefully we can do that better this time. Also next week, I'm going camping for a week, so live stream will be postponed until the following week, so there will be no live stream next Wednesday. This week's subject is something a little bit more somber. We're going to talk about safety, and actually this is really important. So, we got, you really have to worry, particularly about what you're hanging on. And there have been actually deaths from hanging in a hammock. And I think one of the most notable one that really sobered me up was, it was the story of Chasey and Scout at Scarra Valley. And well, both those were hanging in a hammock and they were on a brick pillar, and that brick pillar wound up being pulled over. Now you would really think that a brick pillar is gonna hold up really well, but they're not meant to be taking forces that are going horizontally like that. So the pillar fell down. Unfortunately, the girls passed away. The father had to go and try to resuscitate him. It is a nightmare. If anybody out there is a parent, I just cannot imagine what a nightmare that would be. You really want to be careful on what you're hanging on, and realize that those pillars, even if they do go up to something that's solid, they're really not meant and connected in such a way that that is not going to topple down. And when it starts to go, there's nothing you can do about it. And then the heavy weight of that pillar is then working against you. This happened just back in 2020. I remember it really well, and it really wised me up to being much more careful about what I hang on. There has been others. There was a young lady, I think she was in her early 20s, and same thing happened, and she couldn't figure out why after the pillar fell on her that she couldn't move. She thought it was because the pillar was on her, but it was because she was paralyzed from the torso down, and still today it broke her back. And there's been other deaths, particularly of children. So we really want to, first of all, children should be supervised. And that is super important. They consider it a swing. They consider it a toy. And they get on there and they're putting even more forces as they do that. More than one kid gets in there. They don't understand that the weight, the force being applied from a hammock, particularly if it's strung tight, is more than their body weight pulling like that. And when you start putting in more than one child into there, and you also have the dynamic forces that are going on because they're swinging or they're doing that thing that they spin around and hang upside down underneath the hammock, and all of that can certainly put on more force than even sometimes a tree. So let's give a giveaway just to liven up just a little bit. We're going to do Facebook on this one. Oh, man. I saw this in there and I thought people would really enjoy this. This is our Fleas grill. Comes in the stuff sack like here, and what this is meant for is you put this on the fire pit, and you're cooking your steaks, you're cooking your burgers on there. You just prop it up on some rocks. It's going to put the grill marks of the fleas on there. It's actually us utilizing our scrap, which actually we start with scrap, and then we take this scrap and we cut it into something that can be useful. So this is a titanium grill. And the first person to do hashtag picture will win this. Shout out again Vicky for putting these together for us, being the super customer service, and her roles are ever expanding. So she is ever greatly involved, but yet she still takes the time. She's probably on this live stream chatting with everybody, welcoming everybody, and big thanks to her. All right. There is a thing that has been posted before, and it is taking hammocks. Now, it is one thing to do the bunk bed, to hang 2 hammocks. I believe that hammocks should really be done side by side. But sometimes people can hang hammocks and they're one over top of another. Here, people get crazy, and you can see right here that this is people putting up 20, 30 hammocks all on one tree. I really believe that this is unsafe. Not only are you getting all the force of all these people on these trees, but you're also you're accentuating it, because as they go up, it's acting like a lever. Also, one person falls, they fall down onto the next person. This is too much force to put on even these large of trees. You can see in the background they're doing that. This picture is kind of famous, and every time I see it, I kind of cringe, because I think, oh no, there's more people that are going to want to do this, that they're going to do this challenge, and we want to worry a little bit more about safety, because, well, one of the things about our hobby is that if people are getting hurt doing it, then there's going to be regulations against it. Go to state parks and they're going to be like, no, we don't want to have that. We also just don't want people to get hurt. This looks like fun, but I believe this is dangerous. So trees can fall, and I certainly have been in the forest when trees have fallen. I have a video a little bit later showing one of the aftermath of one that I was hanging on that the tree fell. They can fall from you hanging on them. They can fall from just the wind, and trees are just, you don't know what's going on underneath them. And it may look like it's live and may look good, but who knows if some stream was underrooting it, or it's diseased, or something such as that. All right, you never want to hang your hammock any higher than you want to fall. And now, this might be logical, don't put your hammock up here, and actually it's kind of unusable with that. But also, you want to worry about what could be underneath you. I saw one time where somebody, and I especially don't promote doing this, is they had a sapling that was in between the 2 trees that they wanted to hang on. So they cut off that sapling. And how'd they cut off that sapling? Did they cut it flush to the ground? No, they cut it like 6 inches from the ground, because it's kind of hard to get the saw down like that. And did they cut it straight across? No, they cut it at an angle, and basically they made a spike. When they got in their hammock, it actually tore their hammock because it sagged down and cut into the hammock. That kind of situation you don't want, because if that hammock gives away for any reason, you could impale yourself. Another thing to really watch out for is rocks that could be particularly underneath your head. It doesn't take too much of a fall with you hitting your head that you could go and hurt your. Well, I had a boss one time. I'll tell you, he fell not far off of a ladder, and it was just he was headed up to clear off some snow, and he was going to retire, but he was a vibrant man. He was in his 50s, and he fell down, and he wound up injuring his head to the point that his brain swelled, and he wound up spending the rest of his life, which was very short, in a nursing home until finally he passed away. So it really doesn't take too much. So want to be careful of those rocks. I've seen some people hanging over things that I've been like, ooh, I don't think that I would ever hang there. You always want to use a tree. I use as a good rule of thumb at least 4 inches in diameter. That's also really good because they don't bend when you get in them. And also the larger tree, it's better for the tree if you're not putting that kind of stress on it. The larger the tree, the better you're going to be. So at least 4 inches in diameter on that. All right, we're moving fast. So let's do another giveaway. So this one's going to be on YouTube. Ah, look at all these giveaways. Spud stick stashers. So these are a really good idea. You go and you stick these on you stick it on your pack, and then you stick it on your hiking stick. And then you can take these and you stick them to them. What I really like about this is this was designed by a thru hiker. He came up with this idea, so he made molds, had these things built, and well, I really love to see that kind of entrepreneurship and somebody creating something from nothing, and that's what this guy did. So these are the Spud stick stashers. Which did I say this one's on? This is on YouTube. So YouTube, and we're gonna go hashtag stingers. Sorry for that stumble. Hashtag stingers though, and win the stick stashers. We got a lot, so let's do another. Got a pack cover. This one's going to be on Facebook. This is a printed pack cover, and it is a gorgeous camo. I can never memorize all of our camos because we got a lot of them, but this is gorgeous. This is going to fit pretty much any pack, and we can do hashtag Dutch on this. By the way, this is live and then it still continues to air. So if this is not live, as in we're not airing on a Wednesday evening at 6:30 to 7:30, it really doesn't help any to hashtag these things in, because the winning prize has already been determined. So we really want to check the tree, and you really want to know the condition of the tree. Right away, I want you to go and look at the, look for leaves. Look for leaves on all the trees. Now this works really well in the spring and the summer and the fall, but it gets a little bit tough in the winter. But there's still signs that you can tell a tree is alive. Look for how small the twigs are when they come off. Like, do you see this tree as something that's going to bud, or do you see a lot of broken branches that that this tree was dead when fall came, and it looks the same? This particularly gets to be important, and I'll tell you, there was one time, it was Maha, I think it was 11 years ago, and I was talking to Adventure Island. It just so happens that it's raining right now, and the same thing was happening. We're underneath my tarp, and a storm's blowing in, and we are at Maha in Pine Grove. So I get underneath my tarp, and he ran off. He said, I got to go get with my setup. So he goes and he runs over to his setup, and I'm underneath my setup, and two very big gusts of wind come in. And I go and I reach up, and because my tarp is falling down on me. And I thought, well, it came disconnected from the tree or something. And my tarp's falling down, and just instinctively, you want to hold it up. But when I held it up, I felt up there, and I could feel through the tarp, I could feel bark. And that is because the tree that my hammock set up and my tarp was set up, it fell down. And I was feeling the falling tree as it came down. It landed in a fairly busy hang. Very luckily, nobody got hurt. I can tell you, it's amazing how slow a tree falls when you're right beside it, but it doesn't fall so fast when it was like a 50-foot pine tree. It was huge. It's one of the reasons why we no longer go to Pine Grove for the Maha, is because their group sites got closed. It used to be an old tree farm, Christmas tree farm. 100 years ago, all the trees are now, although they are alive, there are problems with them with beetles, and they never really seem to have a very good root structure. So I have a video of the aftermath of this because I took a video at the time. So this is the old video of that. Welcome to Maha. Just had a storm. As you can see, it was a good one. So that's the tree that fell. And here you can see the two tarps. The pink one is my daughter's.
Happened to bring down a tree.
There's a black one that has fallen. And the black one I was underneath. You can still see my hammock that I was under there. And
I was under that black tarp.
Truly amazing that nobody got hurt. So this stuff really does happen. These trees really do fall, and I want everybody to be safe, and that really is important. At that time, I was able to walk over because the whole root ball fell over. Like I said, this was a completely live tree. Root ball fell over, and I actually pulled out my stake like this because that's where the stake wound up being. It was a good story, but you know, afterwards, believe me, I was going and hooting and hollering that, hey, I'm still alive. I'm really glad. So let's never exceed the weight limit on your hammock body. I know people want to have the lightest hammock possible, and sometimes people go and put multiple people in the same hammock, which is very often at that point they are probably exceeding the weight limit, and falling through your hammock can be dangerous. You really don't want it to happen. Unfortunately, it does happen sometimes. Sometimes it happens slowly, but sometimes there's a hammock there and then there's not a hammock there. So exceeding the weight limit is not a good idea. And remember that there are different type of forces. There are static forces. This is a static force. This is not a static force. And swinging is not a good idea. So if you ever see kids that are swinging, bad idea. There is a hammock that I see every time on my way to work. And it is strung up really high. It's strung up really tight the way you're not supposed to hang a hammock. And I think they might be doing that because the distance between trees is a little bit far. This is right in their front yard. But it has been up there for 3 years. It's a gathered end hammock and some cheap one that was purchased. But that thing has been through all kinds of weather. It's up there winter and summer. It's getting all kinds of UV. And that hammock is, quite frankly, it's dangerous. The straps have been UV degraded and stuff like that. And certainly the fabric is well weakened after, I mean, it's got to be 4 years that thing's been up. And, well, I want to go take it down, but I'm afraid I'll get in trouble for doing so. Let's move to suspensions. One of the weakest spot of this whole system is the suspensions. A lot of them are adjustable. And first thing I want to talk about is a continuous loop. Continuous loop can get wear. And most of them are made out of AM steel. These things are incredibly strong, but they do wear. And you're putting metal on it, and especially when you're doing some of this swinging, it acts like a little bit of a saw, and it's going to wear them out. My rule of thumb is that as long as one of the strands are not broken, you're still okay. You're going to see some fraying that occurs pretty quickly. But as long as that strand is still okay, it's okay to continue to use. But there's a way to make these safer and to make them so that they last much, much longer. And what that is, if we get the roaming camera here, what I like to do for that is I loosen up the continuous loop and I'll pull one side. And see this, as I pull this, now I'm landing on a different spot. If you do that, these loops will easily last for years. And I like to do that kind of every season. I'll go and I'll just loosen this up a little bit. And it's kind of a good idea because these get really tight down on down on the fabric anyhow to relieve that stress. Also, don't hang on the part that is spliced together. You really want to be on the thinner part of it. So that'll make your continuous loop last longer, and also it's going to be safer. If they ever are showing wear, if you're seeing wear on that, often whoopee slings where the berry enters will elongate, and particularly if you see a strand that's broken, it's time to replace it. This stuff is quite inexpensive, and if you fall, you could damage your hammock. You could damage an underquilt, which you certainly don't want to do for the expense of a $2.50 continuous loop. And or a $7 whoopee sling. And also, you could get hurt, so you don't want that. Told you we got a lot of giveaways. Let's see what Vicky put in here. So in here, we have the Gidget bag made out of cloud fabric. And there are 3 bowl bags, which we just got back in stock. And we're very happy about because we were out of stock for quite a while. And with that, because she's putting in the bowl bags, she puts in the bowl bag bivvy. So we're going to do this on Facebook. And first person to type hashtag bowl bag bivvy. It's probably easier to type than it is to say. Let's do another one for YouTube. Pretty sure this is a phone holder. This is the best phone holder on the market. These attach with our quick link system, and they got dynamo on one side. You can operate your phone right through here. It can be done horizontally or vertically. And what's really sweet about this is you can install these on here without taking off your ridge line. You can easily take this off if you want to store it separately or move it to a different hammock. And they are super light, but packing away your hammock with this is much better than one of those hard plastic ones because it cannot rub or anything on there. This is about as soft as it can be. So which one did I say I'm doing this on? We're going to do this on YouTube, and we'll do hashtag Vicky. That's with an I. All right, while we're on suspensions, I really want to hit on the cinch buckle. The biggest reason, or the way that I have more often fallen out of a hammock than any other way is because of the cinch buckle, which really seems like a really great product because it's very adjustable, but they can rotate, and if they rotate, they slip. It's not, you're not going to fall terribly fast, and it's pretty much a slow descent, but very often it messes up the strap as it goes. As you see here, there's 2. And the one on the bottom is a very common way, particularly when they're coming from Asia, of how they splice them on. They take a continuous loop and they wrap it a whole bunch of times, and then it pulls from the middle. I find that that way rotates more easily. When they rotate, the cinching part of it comes off pressure and it slides, particularly slides dragging down the one side and damages it. Now, one thing I really recommend with most suspensions actually, is you just do a quick safety knot. And if the Roman camera could see here, want to go and just take a slip knot and put that right up against the buckle. And that way, if this starts to go, it will stop when it hits that knot. Very easy to undo. And also in doing this, it is going to keep your straps up off the ground, kind of keep them out of your way when I want to do it, I just did a slip knot, so it just comes right out. But this is a great way to back up any buckle system that you should put on there. And, well, like I said, it's going to keep it safer, also might keep it from getting damaged. This is why we developed the titanium cinch buckle. So on the titanium cinch buckle, we actually pull from the middle. If we could bring up a picture of the titanium cinch buckle, you'll see that the uniqueness of this design is that there's a notch in there, and that notch gets held, it gets filled by the rope. So the rope is always going to be centered, and you can't twist these. Also, the beautiful part about this design is that the place that buckle gets put on there is where that notch is. So once the rope is on there, you can't lose the slider. It was one of the tricks that we did for making this, and, well, it worked really well. That's why these are lark's headed on and not spliced on, because you want to make sure that that lark's head stays on there and preventing that slider from getting lost. Even with those, though, I still always recommend you want to go and do a safety hitch on it, as always. The last piece is really one of the things that really scared me the most, because you never really know on this one, and that is widowmakers. Really want to worry about anything that is dead above you, or a limb that has halfway fallen. It fell, it landed on some other limbs, and all it's waiting for is a good stiff breeze to come, knock it out of the tree, and it comes down and hits you. This is true for any camping. However, we tend to be more underneath the trees than on a tent. So you want to be particularly careful, and always look up and make sure there's no trees that are maybe leaning on another tree, that when they fall, are they going to fall where you are? That would be a very bad thing, and we would call that, again, a widowmaker. I often hear chatter about concerns about lightning. So I went and I tried to do a little bit of research on that, and as far as I know, nobody has ever been harmed by lightning from a tree being hit and then coming down the tree and then electrocuting you. And I believe that you are separated, and the voltage would go down to the ground. However, if you've ever seen a video or seen a tree get struck by lightning, you don't want to be beside it. And one of the best protections for that is don't pick the tallest tree of this group of trees. Don't be the one tree, or the two trees, I should say, that are out in the middle of a field. You want to make it so something else is going to take that electric voltage, because you don't want a tree to explode right beside you. Even if you don't get shocked, there's got to be a potential for burns there. And also, those trees sometimes they explode part. So one more time, let's try to get in some questions in here, and I'm going to give away a couple more giveaways, but then we're going to go and do some questions and answers, which has been seriously lacking. So this is a tarp sleeve. I don't remember the part number, so I got to make sure that it is, yes. This is 12 foot 6 long tarp sleeve. This is going on Facebook. And, well, every one of my tarps has one of these. They're fantastic. And we can do hashtag Dutchware. Yeah, make sure when you win these, you reach out to us, We confirm who you are. Particularly, it gets a little harder when it's on YouTube. It gets a little harder when it's on YouTube, and the because Facebook is just a little bit more identifiable. But reach out to us, and we'll make sure that we get these out to you. We ship them out pretty much every Thursday. All right, so let's try to do some questions. I have no questions. I'm on Slack. I don't know, this question and answer part, it's one of the most hardest parts of this. Sometimes they come to me and they're on my phone, they're little teeny tiny. All right, Ryan Hess, do you have any tips on how to decide that your hammock fabric has been compromised, too big a hole, or when the continuous loops should be replaced? Continuous loops, as long as the strands are not broken. You can have some fraying, and you will have fraying on them, but if a strand is broken, that's time to replace it. Actually, I'm really glad Ryan, that you mentioned this. And things do happen with hammocks. One time, I have my fixed blade. Don't ever do this, since we're on the safety. I have a fixed blade, and I went to bed at the end of the night, and I totally forgot that I had a fixed blade on me. The fixed blade actually came out of the sheath. And I woke up with a very sharp knife, and about a horse knife, laying beside me in the hammock. There's all kinds of bad stuff that could have happened there. And things do poke into hammocks. You do get little tiny pulls. Very often, it depends on where it's at. To demonstrate that, this is the way you lay in a hammock, and there is all kinds of stress on this hammock fabric, and this is where the holes usually occur, because either the person is poking into it, or they hang it too low, and maybe there is a briar, or maybe it gets so low that it rubs on a rock right here. So, but this, unfortunately, it's where you usually get the holes, and unfortunately, it is the worst place to have it, because this is where the fabric is under the most stress. All these places where there's not the human body actually have very little stress. There's almost nothing. You can see this has slack in it, and actually this hammock was designed to not have the slack. And really, your legs don't weigh that much. It's really your torso, your butt in particular, and those you have to be more careful for. Now, am I going car camping? Then I don't worry about it so much. But that might not be the hammock that I take on a 4-day journey, that I know that I need to have a sleep shelter, and well, it might be time to retire that. Many of these hammocks have ripstop in them. And that's one of the things that I do look for. Did it get past the ripstop? If I see strands of ripstop that are broken, then that becomes a concern. Also, be wary that some brands go and say that their fabrics are ripstop and they're not ripstop. A ripstop is supposed to reinforce, and it's supposed to stop a rip. Sometimes companies we have lines on it, so we're just going to call it ripstop. You want to have something that if it does start to tear, and that's the whole point to ripstop, that when it was developed, it was for parachutes. They wanted to keep them light. They wanted to keep them so they pack small. But they still, obviously, if a rip starts in a parachute, you would like to stop. And when I'm looking closely at a hole, I'm looking to see if the ripstop has been compromised. If so, and it happens to be at a load-bearing spot, then I think that hammock fabric is probably due to be replaced. That's the one you give your friends. All right. Cody Swoop. I have a banyan bridge. Ordering the chameleon soon. I want to put some poles in my backyard and hang the hammock from. What height and distance do you recommend the poles to be? I really, the wider you're going to get, the higher they have to get. But I have poles also that I do hang from, and I really find 14 feet to be really pretty ideal. Getting 6 foot of height, I believe, should be good. But there's really a great way of doing this, and that is there are hang calculators that will tell you how high you should put your strap for each different lengths of your hammock. Now, banyan and all bridges are a little bit different on that, but when it comes to a gathered end, they're the ones that you're particularly going to need more height because you're coming down at a 30-degree angle. And, well, the magic number really is 14. I find 14 to be plenty big enough, and if it's 6 foot tall, I'm going to get in any hammock in there. You can go down to, if you have to, if space is limited, you want to be at a very bare minimum of 12 feet, and that's even pretty small. 13 becomes a pretty good number too. So 13 to 14 feet. Heading out to the AT, February 2025. Nobo, any safety pointers for hanging in potentially bitter cold or possibly even icy conditions that might be happening that time of year on the trail? I am going to be doing the exact same. So you have to worry. I'm going to be mostly worried about cold, and I'm also going to be worried about the fact that it is difficult to find whether or not a tree is alive. I can only imagine that a frozen tree is a little bit more brittle too. So, you know, that 4-inch diameter, maybe you want to beef that up a little bit and use slightly larger trees. Winter storms happen, and the wind can definitely be blowing, and I guess a snow load can cause additional problems with widowmakers. So you want to be hypersensitive to looking up and seeing what's above you. I can't imagine that there's going to be icicles that I have to worry about falling down and impaling me. More than that, try to stay warm because you know I'm going to be out there. I'm leaving the end of January, so I'm going to be just a little bit colder than you. Good luck on that through hike, by the way. Dan Bezak, do you prefer continuous tarp sleeves or 2-piece tarp sleeves? Well, Dan Bezak, I really prefer a single piece, and the real reason for that is I love to be able to come over here and bring it all the way over and not get that wad in the middle. Because when you bring it over from one side and you bring it over from the other side, you wind up with that bundle of tarp because you're taking both your slack and bringing them in there. When you take it all the way to the one side, it actually stretches it out, and when I finally pull it down, very often it's hanging out there, and I just stuff that in the end. It just comes out looking a little bit neater when you use the single one versus the double. So that's really my only preference. I looked at one time the sales numbers for each of them, and because I considered going and canceling and only offering one. However, it was very close. It was 60% of the time people get the single sleeve, and 40% of the time they get the double. And that might be because I usually recommend the single sleeve, so it might be my influence on that.
All right, Melanie Rice, camping near a large body of water during a thunderstorm. I camp near a beach and always wonder if I should be there.
I believe that you are more worried about things of height than you are of the large body of water. And I don't want to claim to be an expert on this, but I really have tried to do some research, and I've never found anybody that has been electrocuted from lightning in a hammock. And there's a good possibility that it insulates you, that the voltage would not actually go through you. But you know, lightning can be finicky, and you don't want a tree blowing up beside you. But I believe that the large body of water is not your concern. The concern is the antennas that your hammock is hanging up on.
Kevin Munson, question for Dutch. If you leave your suspension outside, how often should you replace it using spider poly straps?
Well, I would think that would be a good thing to replace. Let's go every year if you're really going to keep them permanently out there. A year is a long time for ultraviolet rays, and both polyester and the Dyneema that is made out of is very not sensitive. I'm not really certain of the word there, but it is not going to be degraded by the UV light. And it is better than nylon. Nylon actually does get affected a little bit more by UV light, and it's way better than Kevlar, which will actually degrade after 40 hours of constant sunlight. It will degrade. This is something that I don't really recommend, but some people leave their setup so that they can just go out there and hang it. One thing I would do if I was doing that is, since weight's not going to be an issue, I would get a heavier duty strap, maybe the 3,000 pound webbing straps, just to give you a little bit more oomph on those straps. If you change it out every year, I believe that you are falling well within a safe zone. Could stretch it to another year, but let's be on the safe side since we're talking about safety, and they're really not that expensive to change that out. It's much better to change that out than damage something such as your hammock or your quilt. This is really great. These are great questions, and I'm glad that we're able to get to these. All right, Frank Haverkamp. I have a sleep pad for now, and I'm wondering if it will work better in the hammock or used between the hammock and underquilt protector. No underquilt yet. There actually is we have an underquilt protector that is designed for that, and it's meant to have on between the underquilt protector and the hammock. The standard one, I don't think it works quite well enough, and particularly if you're trying to get down to some really cold temperatures. So in that case, I prefer to have it on the inside. If it is on the outside of the hammock, you are going to be more comfortable, because it's just better to lay on the hammock fabric. It's also so much easier to get in and out and not have the hammock or have the pad move around on you. But if you can, and one way to do that is having a double layer or a underquilt protector that is meant for a pad, then you can have it on the outside of the hammock. So, all right, I think that's going to do us for this week. And like I said, next week we're going to be going, well, I got some camping to do. I've been doing some great trips lately. Just got back from a great fishing trip with some great friends, and I'm headed back out come next week. So I won't be able to do a live stream, but we'll have a live stream the following week. So with that, thank you, everybody.